Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about 11 mistakes that make it impossible to stick to an exercise routine. Now, this could be applied to a lot of different things, right? Any kind of habit that you're building, but specifically, I've seen a lot of people commenting about how difficult it is to actually sustain an exercise routine. And this is a very common problem, so I thought I would address it. Now, when we're talking about mistakes or problems, it's good to begin thinking about the categories, because the categories of failure almost identifying where the problem lies. This is what I do. I identify a deep problem, I identify categories, and I identify cause and effect relationships. So whether I'm talking with a business owner or we're talking about weight loss or we're talking about any kind of change, it's going to come down to two factors. And it's going to come down to strategy, and it's going to come down to execution. And problems are going to be occurring in various aspects. Now, strategy is complex, but obviously there's going to be, we're really going to talk about two of these 11 or actually 12 factors here. So I don't know if I said 11 or 12, but I have 12, so a nice surprise for you here. But going in with that that understanding that the problems are happening in either of these two categories will really help, because you'll know if it's more of an execution problem or a strategy problem. And oftentimes, if we go deep enough in the strategy, which we want to rely on our strategy as much as possible, and not on the warrior, the pushing, the willpower to the maximum degree, because that effort doesn't lead to results. We see that in business, we see that in health, we see that across everything. So you have to get the effort equals results exclusively out of your head, but at the same time you have to link effort in terms of, at the same time, building a better strategy on top of effort into execution that does lead to results, or at least improvements. So but if you oversimplify it, you miss everything, and you commit too many mistakes, and you end up in a health, willpower, energy debt, and you end up giving up. So let's start with number one. So the first one that we need to address is really the elephant, which is your strategy doesn't take enough into account. You don't understand the components of what would allow your exercise routine to hook you. You don't understand what makes you consistent with certain behavior, and how can you create that kind of emotional relationship with that behavior that would get you hooked. So if you don't understand it, or you don't even have to rationally understand it, you just have to emotionally or at least intuitively understand what leads to successful change. And if you don't, then that makes it impossible. So it's good to have someone like me on your side, where we understand change. We know what causes what. We know, and we can predict if you will stick to it. If you told me your plan, I would probably be able to predict whether you will succeed or not, and save you years of time. Now, obviously, exercise is also connected to larger goals. So depending on what those larger goals are, your strategy needs to take all of that into account. And it's worth planning and taking things into account, because that can save you years and years of time. If you just try to rely on your own personal experience, it's not gonna go well. I mean, nothing has ever really worked out well for me when I try to rely on personal experience. It's never good enough. If anything, it will get you by, but you will never get to a higher level. So personal experience sucks. It's just not a good tool. And this is why you have a brain. You need to learn and absorb. Now, going into mistake number two is that the exercise type, or the exercise amounts, or the form of exercise, or how much exercise you're actually doing, how often you're doing it, when you're doing it, it's unsustainable. That it's actually, and this is a component of strategy, but it's really more specifically focused on this one thing about the actual exercise. That the way you're doing the exercise, you either don't enjoy it, it doesn't give you the results you want, or you're not even sure about the results you want. Because we were talking about how effort, because it's kind of complicated. You do need to believe that effort leads to rewards, but that effort needs to be, the word effort needs to be sophisticated and channeled across strategy and execution, and not just into the execution. But if you don't actually believe that the type of exercise that you're trying to get yourself hooked onto will lead to results that excite you, you will never stick to it. So if a guy wants to look, powerful and strong, but he wants to optimize his testosterone, but the only way in which he knows how to exercise is running, well, he's gonna have a bad time because running will actually lower your testosterone levels for the most part, depending on the type of running you do. But this is very well known. Endurance running, for the most part, will move you into a hormonal category that you don't want to be in, because it will make you less anabolic. It will make you potentially even less. It has a lot of brain health benefits, but you can get a lot of those benefits while also getting your hormones to a phenomenal place. Okay, number 3, obviously your nutrition strategy. Because even though we're talking about exercise, if your nutrition destroys your motivation, if your nutrition leaves you depleted, so whether you're on the side of, I'm just gonna eat fast food and try to exercise it off, it's still going to affect your motivation. It's going to destroy your dopaminergic neurons. It's going to leave you, it's going to make you recover slower. Your motivation to move and expand energy is going to be destroyed. Your effort perception, which is, you're going to be, oh my God, exercise requires so much time and effort. I don't have that much time. I can't take on another thing. That's low dopamine. So if your nutrition is leading to you being a low dopamine person, meaning that you're lying to yourself about how much effort something requires, you don't have any discipline, you're a sucker for immediate gratification, and you're not actually excited and you don't want to do it, that's going to really affect you negatively, and you're not going to exercise. So your nutrition really matters when it comes to even wanting to exercise. So it's not actually about the capacity to exercise. You could, but it's really going to be the mental aspect, because a lot of people will actually blame their mindset initially, and mindset and psychology can always be improved, because there's a huge potential there that we can play with, but you're going to simply require a lot more willpower to push yourself to exercise if you don't have the nutrition in a good place. And if you have other areas in your life that require willpower, as we do, if you're a parent, if you have a business, if you have a demanding job, then something has to give. You don't have infinite willpower. And as long as health is part of is a huge source of drainage on your willpower because your strategy sucks, then your health is always going to be left behind for things that actually have to take priority. So you need to make sure that health is really a source of willpower and not really costing you that much, which is why you want to set up automatic systems that allow you to exercise. And we'll get into that in a moment. Now, mistakes number 4, which is that you've given yourself a PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder from your past attempts to exercise. There's a lot of, I love David Goggins, but he has more than likely led to a lot of people going I'm gonna keep pushing. And if you don't have a nuanced idea of willpower and discipline, then you're going to torture yourself out, and it's going to become a binary judgment of this lifestyle is for me or this lifestyle isn't for me. And if you have other goals than just running, then there's a lot of things that you need to take into account in how much stress you're able to tolerate, how much workouts you're able to tolerate. There's just a lot of components that there is a certain volume that you can take right now, and going beyond that is going to lead to some kind of burnout, and then eventually that's going to lead to your psychology adjusting that, this is just not me, it was too much, it required too much, it took too much willpower, which wasn't sustainable, which then made you quit. So that's very common actually. This is common across diets, this is common across really every single thing that you could try in the world. If the first attempt doesn't pay off, most people will never try it again. If most people, after starting a first business that doesn't succeed, they'll claim, boom, entrepreneurship is not for me, it's not gonna work out. So if you've fallen into that category, watch how you just blamed the wrong thing. And so this is what we're talking about. If you blame the wrong thing, you're going to suffer. So you need to get very good at blaming the right thing. And this is fascinating to my clients as well, when they see that we're trying to find and be very, very specific what we're blaming. Because we need to blame the specific belief, specific problem, specific mistake, and not the person, the entire thing. We can't just throw out everything. Now, coming back into overall, mistake number 5 is that your overall health and the state of your energy, your willpower, how well you're able to move. All of those things are going to impact. The worse your health is, the harder it is to improve your health. The better your health is, the easier it is to make choices. Because what does it take to become healthier? It actually takes executive function. So it actually takes you to consider, resist impulses, plan, prioritize the future. So it takes a lot of different cognitive functions that if you are in a depleted state, you just don't really have that much access to. It also takes that you update your emotional brain with your rationality. So which means that you have to learn something, and it actually has to change your emotional brain, which this takes some time sometimes. And if you haven't done this in a while, you haven't changed your mind, if you haven't been practicing the wonderful aspects of neuroplasticity, and you haven't changed your mind in a long time, it's going to feel strange, and you're not going to be used to it, and you're going to see that there's a lot of incongruency between what you know and what you do. And what you know is your rational brain, but what you do is your emotional brain. And if there's a lot of incongruency, it means that there is very, very weak connections and weak communication there. And we actually need to redefine what you call as I know something. If you're not doing it, you don't know. So that's a good, useful way to frame that. Now, number 6, more specifically into psychology. So I talk about the serotonergic system a lot. And the reason I do that is because it has a huge impact on our actions, on our individual actions, on actions it controls a lot. And the serotonergic system, if exercise is not part of what you take pride in, what you admire, what fires you up, so you can think of serotonin as your relationship to a certain ideal. And if your ideal that you've set out for yourself, most people have killed their ideal, first of all. And you will come across this a lot. They've killed any kind of aspirations. They're focusing on something else because it was too harsh, right? The first story in the Bible is Cain and Abel, and Cain kills his ideal, and that he does that because it's very crushing to see someone do better than you, and to feel like you're not getting paid for your efforts. So I've said I'm an expert in health, and I've had experiences where. Some of my wife's friends, for example, would say, oh, he only looks that way because he's young. And potentially, if you've been watching my content, you know that there's a lot of intentionality behind what I do. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of pain and suffering, and many, many, many hours, probably over 15,000 hours of studying various topics at this point. But someone has killed their ideal, and so it hurts them to do this. So depending on your serotonergic system, coming back to that, if it's not really a big part of your pride, your status, how you gain status, because almost like without this being part of your serotonergic system, your dopamine has nowhere to go. You're going to have your typical dopaminergic interests, things you're curious about, things you're motivated to do, the cravings, the desires, and then your serotonergic, if you don't have exercise part of this thing that makes you proud, there's obviously many dimensions here, but if it's not in the same category as shopping or buying new cars or doing something else that makes you proud, that you almost put your status on the line with, you're not going to exercise because it's not part of your identity, it's not part of your self-image, it's not really part of the ideal, and you're not going to feel guilty. And guilt here can be actually pretty complex because if you have low serotonin, then these goals and values don't actually mean much to you. So it's not necessarily about bringing you down, but it's actually about creating a game where you can win, where you want to win, and where you can win through the right actions. And where if you do something wrong, you don't necessarily feel bad about your entire self, but you feel not right about the behavior. You feel not right about the results. You want to do better. So yeah, that's the serotonin aspect. Now, dopamine, the dopaminergic system is very important here, obviously, as well, because dopamine is ultimately responsible for everything that you do. And if you're doing something, it means it produces dopamine, which means not like after you do it, but before. So dopamine does play a minor role in rewarding you. Once you complete something, dopamine does make you hook on it. It rewards you slightly, but the main function of dopamine is not that. The main function of dopamine is to make you want to do that in the first place. It's to make you want to exert energy. So if someone has low dopamine, they're going to do everything in their power to not exert energy. and to conserve the resources and to play it small and to not pursue rewards. So if you think about that, that's exactly what happens in most situations when someone is trying to make exercise their priority. They have very low amounts of dopamine. And this is seen in the industry, when I'm helping someone formulate a nootropic stack even. And initially we didn't even address, maybe our focus was on business performance primarily. But what ends up happening is that as their dopaminergic health, as their drive increases, just they're outperforming themselves in all areas of their life, because dopamine has a somewhat general response. It does make you everything that you value. It makes you motivated to do towards doing it. There's obviously a hierarchy, but it's taking care of your dopaminergic system is very important. And there's a lot of basic things you can do. One of the number one killers of dopaminergic health is inflammation. As your inflammation goes up, dopamine goes down, neurotransmitter goes down, BDNF goes down. And this is one of my primary drivers for eating healthy, because I know these things and I don't just rely on my personal experience, but as soon as I learned these things, I was able to recognize them. So my self-awareness muscle, which is the insula in your brain, actually grew larger and stronger and better at analyzing what I feel and connecting it into science. So that's actually a big part of what allows behavioral change to happen. But then going forward, so that was 7. Now 8 is the emotional brain. So if exercise induces some kind of, it does produce some kind of emotion. When you think about exercise, it produces certain emotions. And even though you may think that you believe that exercise is good for you, your emotional brain actually shows what you believe. Rationally, you have different intent. Maybe you want to look smart. Maybe you want to look enlightened. That, oh yeah, of course I exercise. But your emotional brain is going to show us the answer of what is going on, and we need to kind of stay with it, confront it, stare it down, and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask until we get the real answers as to why that is. And a lot of people are very self-conscious when they've never been a beginner in something, or if they've had horrible experiences of being a beginner at something or looking horrible. There's a lot of these different, in high status people, if exercise is not part of their status, they're often having to downgrade from being in a high status position to boom, suddenly, as soon as they join the exercise club or go to the gym, they're low status and they hate that. So it's important that your status is actually, your serotonin is actually sophisticated so that it protects you from that kind of ignorance, because that's a fixed mindset that will really destroy what you're going to be capable of. Now, obviously we're going for quite some time, going into the biology. I talked about overall health, but specifically talking about brain health, specifically talking about thyroid health, talking about hormonal health. If you have really poor health, there's just going to be you're gonna have to start slow. First of all, the biomechanics aspect, you're already at danger. A lot of people actually start exercising and they injure themselves. They start running, which is a biomechanically extremely advanced movement. And most professional athletes actually run in a way that leads to a ton of injuries, because it's just not how human beings were designed to run. And this science of biomechanics and running is very, very behind, just like nutrition is, as far as our conceptual understanding of it. Either way, basically diving into that, you need to meet yourself where you're at, and you can't overdo the volume, you can't overdo the intensity, and you need to adopt the type of exercise into what you're doing. Now, I see a lot of people that, of course, will stick to the least effective dosage, and that's a little risky as well, because if you're just on the elliptical, you're not doing much. You're gonna get a lot of mental benefits and brain health benefits from getting your heart rate elevated, and that's going to be helpful. But there's just a lot more to exercise than even just heart rate. And one of the biggest effects is actually the hormonal response that you get from strong really exercise, and the protective. So strength training leads to better biomechanics. Better biomechanics allow you to do more activity. You are able to walk. You want to be active because it's not that exhausting. You're even able to, once you're able to walk, potentially you're going to be able to even jog a little bit. After that, you're going to be able to even lift somewhat. If you're not improving biomechanics, which a lot of machines are not going to allow you to do that, it becomes very difficult to kind of make that progress that would allow you to be actually encouraged, because you're seeing massive changes, whether in strength or, for guys specifically, and I mean for women as well. It's just the faster you focus on gaining muscle, the easier everything becomes, because hormonally you are adapted to be lower in body fat, and to be healthier, and to be stronger, and to be more stable. So it's very helpful to address biology, even though you're trying to build just the exercise habit. It's about the big picture. You can't really, if you're not addressing your sleep, if you're not addressing your stress, if you're not addressing your mental state and how you're thinking, if you're not addressing the relationships you have in your life and how they're influencing you, if you're a follower and everyone else around you is not exercising, you need to know that, because you're going to become a victim of social clusters, and you don't want that. Now, number 11, or actually number 10. So the reward system specifically, and reward system is more specific within the emotional brain, we could say, and it is regarding the sense of reward. So it's not that you get any kind of external rewards, but it's what are you finding rewarding, and really what kind of ideas, emotionally loaded ideas, are in possession of you. Do you think that only losers exercise? That it's just not what successful people do? Do you think that you should be sleeping 4 hours a day and that it's not affecting you magically? That you get to deny, that for example, health doesn't matter for your cognitive performance. You're going to try to delude yourself and explain as to why you haven't been exercising. But the beautiful thing is that we're able to drive some of those points home, so that we can see and show you the benefits. So you can see that there's actual huge rewards out there. You want to be smart, we can make you smarter, for example. Now, number 1 is neuroassociations. On a simple level, do you associate pain or pleasure to going exercise? If you're not exercising, you're associating pain. If you're exercising, it means you're associating pleasure. So even the motivational speakers are telling you, push through pain, drive, keep going. Whether it's Jocko Willink or David Goggins, they still associate pleasure. They still get a massive amount of dopamine moving them in the right direction. So you could do the same, but you need to understand the system so that you can get past all the mechanisms that are filtering your information. Because for example, if you have poor health, if I offer you a belief that would give you back your power, that would make your life better, but that would require a ton of effort from you, you're going to not accept it, because it requires too much effort, and your brain right now is protecting you from exerting effort, because you have no dopamine, you have no energy. So see how that interaction goes. So as you see, there could be many reasons that are not as simple as you're lazy as to why exercise hasn't been able to stick around. The last one really for why exercise hasn't become a habit yet for you is because you lack good reasons. You have to understand that you're presenting a case for yourself as to why exercise should be something. I mean, on a net level, it's going to require energy. So if you don't think you're getting anything in exchange, you're not going to do it. If I just had no reasons to exercise, I wouldn't exercise, and no one would, because biologically we only did it because we had to. And so if in our modern life, it has to become a higher level process. It has to become, you actually have to have rational reasons, strategic reasons for exercising in of its own. And you can obviously design that, but all of that requires a lot of effort. So you need to have strong reasons to do it. Once you have reasons, then we jump into strategy. And once we have a strategy, then we focus on execution and updating the strategy consistently and making it better. And that's the optimization process that I take my clients through. Now, your health is not in isolation from everything else in your life. It's not in isolation from how your overall philosophy. If your health is not it doesn't fit into the model of the world that you have. If it's not part of it, if it's not flowing congruently with all your other values and allowing you to perform better, then you're going to reject it. And even if you accept it for a moment, you're going to feel like you're missing out on things and you're going to bounce back. And even if you stick to it, you're going to be miserable. And potentially also because your strategy sucks and you actually feel worse when you're healthy, because you're just starving yourself, eating a bunch of vegetables, drinking a bunch of juices, and you think, that you're surprised as to why, while a month in you got some results, but then after you're not, and you feel worse, and you still feel depressed, because it's more than, your health. You can't just autophagy your way to health. You don't just, weight loss doesn't always accompany health improvements. Sometimes it does, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. So, once you look beyond just weight loss, it becomes a lot better. It becomes a lot more fun. So, yeah, your health is really kind of your current health, your current level of health, your current habits, or your current exercise habits are just a reflection of the system you're following right now. So if you would like to get some help here and really do this right, and not wait 2 more decades, 1 more decade, 5 years, 2 years, to not wait anymore and really address it, deal with it, get in the best shape of your life, feel better than you ever have felt before, and you want to do it so that it lasts, and isn't just a memory of the past. Oh, I remember when I was in such an amazing shape. That's every single teammate of mine. We played soccer, we worked out so much, and most of my teammates are not in a good shape. And they're not really, because they were passive. They never created this. They never created systems that would allow them to be self-directed in their behavior. There's a different level of ownership and pride that comes with that. So if you really want help with that, then I invite you to comment biology underneath this video. If you're watching this on Facebook, comment biology. If you're watching this on YouTube, then there should be a link below in the description of addressing really a webinar, a presentation about how do you optimize your biology? How do you ensure that it lasts? How do you actually make sure that you're not relying on willpower, that you're not miserable, that you're not just draining your willpower and committing all of these mistakes and many more that every single person does, that you're actually, a lot of people, when they go on a healthy diet, their hormonal profile actually changes in a negative direction. They end up with less testosterone. They end up with less drive. They end up with higher cortisol levels, more anxiety. And this is very well documented. As soon as you go on a diet, you're at an increased risk to committing a lot of stupid things, like cheating on your partner. It's a fun statistics from the molecule of more on dopamine, which was showing that the more you're relying on willpower, the more impulsive you become in other places. So if you can't afford impulsivity, then don't just jump in haywire and kind of bounce back and forth, because it's very easy to lose weight just like that. But to keep that, to stay at a certain level, and to do that without, suffering and being miserable is a science. And that's what I do, and that's what I help my clients with. So if you want help, comment biology below or click the link in the description. And I will get that training over you, and I know that you're going to love it. So if you want to make exercise a permanent habit, if you want to be fired up about health, if you want to have more reasons, if you want to do it right and get faster results and avoid the frustration and avoid the mistakes and avoid the why am I feeling so crappy? I have no answers. They said this was good for me. This website said this was good. This was the Game Changers said I should do this. We can get rid of all of that. We can get rid of the noise, and I'll help you see exactly what that needs to look like for you to achieve that. So biology, psychology, performance, and influence is the bigger picture of what I do. But starting with biology is always the best thing to do, and getting biology right is one of the most rewarding experiences you're going to have, because you're going to feel great. And I'm here to tell you, if you're not happy for no reason, then there's something wrong with your biology, because you should have that human optimism. Your hormones should be making you motivated. They should be making you driven and cheerful and joyful and relaxed. And if something is off and you're not able to handle challenges and you're not motivated to address certain aspects of your life and exert effort, something is wrong with your biology, and we can fix it. So comment below biology, click the link, register for the training, and